Block design is essential for your level if you're a design creator, and a lot of you can't figure this stuff out, but it's okay because I got kind of a simple-ish tutorial kind of to teach you the ideas to make this new style of design. Like for example, even the daily level today has this sort of design. A lot of these levels do, so I'm gonna kind of go over the formula of how to make this block design, and yeah, it's pretty much step by step. So step 1 is you need a dark background. I know this doesn't really have a whole lot to do with block design, but it actually kind of does. So we'll just take a dark purple. I think that's a pretty good start. Next up, you need the shape of your block design. So how would I go about this? So a lot of people might start and say, oh, I'll just do the outlines like this. Easy, right? No. For this style of design, what you need to do is actually follow a 1 block wide outline. So that it goes out like this. And you have a shape that's like that. Something that you can go around and fill it in with one block all the way around. So the next step that I typically do personally is I take the same thing, but I take the thicker outline, and I do the same thing. But instead, I make it black. So I do that base HSV and then brightness all the way down. And it's just black. And I also go in and make it 1 Z order less. You can see that there's some extra depth to the block design. I've noticed that you can kind of fill it in with any block as long as it doesn't have color. We'll get to the color later. So you can fill it in with the bricks, or honestly any block that doesn't have color to it like this. But I would strongly suggest use the plain block and make it black. I don't know why, it just makes it easier. So now you got that down, and now we can get into the colors. So obviously, colors for block design should be reflective of the background. So here's how you would set that up. Go into a color channel, copy color, background, and blending. And no matter what you do, right, even if I change only the background, you can see that changes as well. It is always going to be the same. So there's kind of 2 steps you can take from this part, and one of them is have a kind of a line that goes in the middle that fills it in, or anything else, honestly. But they're both equally as common, so I'll go over both. The most commonly used block to go through the middle is this one. So now we have this. And if we go in, you can see that it takes up a pretty decent amount of space, so we can go in and use the coloring technique that we used earlier. We should have something that looks like this. It's a little bit dark, and there's a pretty easy way to fix that. HSV lighting is very important, and you can kind of just change it until you find something that you like. Alright, so this looks pretty good. So I think this is pretty good. It's bright enough. But come on now, we're in 2019, we're in 2.1. If it doesn't have glow on every single aspect of it, then what are you even doing? Alright, so now that's done, and make sure that you can see it, and there we go. That doesn't look too bad. Of course, it still looks pretty empty, and I think there's a little bit more you can do. So a new technique that's been kind of coming up is hue. So of course I could just take some glow and put it over top, but it's not very interesting. It doesn't change the block design a lot, but if I add some hue to it, alright, adds a little bit of variation in color, a little bit more. You can see it's not just the same purple, it's slightly different. And if we go over here, we can change the hue in the opposite direction. So now we have some more glow. Looks something like this. Not too bad. It's kind of empty on the outsides here. How do we fill that in? And there's a number of techniques to kind of fix this, so I'll go over, I guess, all of them. The first one that I personally do is some more outlining. So now we have that, and we can use our color technique. And ta-da! Now it's a lot less empty. You can definitely see a difference here. So another thing you can do is just putting some glow. Like, the issue with too much glow is you don't want it to look messy. But sometimes adding 1 or 2 pieces is not a terrible thing. So you can add any other object, it doesn't really matter. Kind of make it seem more interesting. So I guess this is kind of the finished product for the inside of the block design. It's not my best work, but it's good enough, and it's hopefully can get people on the right track. So number 2, you don't use the center object, and you just kind of fill it in with whatever techniques you use. Honestly, this one's more difficult because you have to get a little bit more creative. You can't just use any other object, you have to actually kind of figure out some techniques. You can add lighting, sort of, you can add glow. So I know there are creators like Danceman that say glow is bad, and if it's used wrongly, it is. But sometimes, if you use it in the correct way, you can make it look good without just seeming lazy. Sometimes this is pretty difficult to do, but it can be done. The more practice and the more time you spend on this, then the better you're gonna get. So obviously, this isn't done. There's so much empty space all around it. How do we fill that out? Step 1, I would say, is 3D lines. So it should look something like that. So now we have some extra depth to the block design. Makes it look a little bit nicer in my opinion. So the final step is filling in the center. This is pretty easy because you can take honestly any block and any design, it doesn't matter. One that I like to typically go with is a darker block, and then you can put glow behind it just to add some color to it. So this is kind of the finished product that I was thinking about. This is the design. It's 1 block wide outline. Simple inside so that it attracts to this. Put as much detail as you can in the center bit. 3D lines usually help, and it goes well with almost any design level. It's a really useful technique to know. I use it all the time. The more you do it, the better you'll get. But this is kind of on the right track. This is what you should aim for when you're doing this sort of design. Of course, it's not the only way you can do design, but in my opinion, it's kind of just the easiest. And what's cool about this is you can actually change the colors very, very easily. So once you're at this point, you can add spikes and like any obstacles around it, any details that surround it. But this is the basic block design. I hope this tutorial helps creators get on the right track, because I've noticed that block design is kind of the biggest thing that people struggle with when making levels when they first start. I personally use this, and if you're a design creator, you should at least know how to do it. So yeah, thanks for watching.